Welcome to Norse Code, the number one podcast for Minnesota Vikings. I'm your host and producer. My name is James Pagashnik. Thank you guys so much for listening. And at the other end of the tin cannon string, we have our analyst and co-host. You know him from numerous blogs and podcasts around the internet, most notably from the Wide Left Substack. He is Mr. Useful Human, Arif Hassan. Arif, are you finally done with that Wide Left piece?
I could tweak it if you want. I could keep going. I'm 2 hours late to when I said I would be. And I told James we needed to hurry.
Well, I just got the notification that the article's posted. I'm glad that it didn't take forever to come up with a name either, so that's good. In addition to information on the Vikings' loss to the Steelers, are they going to learn? Are the listeners, are the readers going to be learning anything that they wouldn't expect to read in a football recap?
It depends on how well you know my writing. If you are a listener who regularly reads my work, none of the things that will come up in the piece are surprising. And if this is your first time reading my work, boy, do I have some great news for you. We talk about the 1916 Easter Uprising, the 1920 War for Irish Independence. We talk a little bit about the Troubles. We talk about the High King of Ireland driving out Citric Silverbeard in 1000 AD and in 1014 AD, both. That's like a bonus there for you. Also, we talk about Dan Rooney and his history with Ireland. We talk about the Black and Tans. And at some we do get to the game, but that's like 2,000 words in and past the paywall. So,
well, yeah. I mean, why would you want to give the Vikings recap before the paywall? That's ridiculous. I support all of this. By the way, I think that this is exactly how football should be covered. It's worth noting that the end racism thing was still in the.
It was, yeah. I noticed that. I was like, hey, look at that.
Yeah, it was still in the end zones in Ireland, so that matters in Ireland. So it doesn't matter in the U.S. So with that, welcome to this episode of Norse Code. Hope you guys are all doing well, or at least better than the Vikings played in Ireland today. The Vikings lost to the Steelers. It was the score of the game was not a good representation of the product that was put out there by the Minnesota offense. But this was a loss. They lose for the first time in international play, and now they get to play in London next week. So that should be entertaining.
Yeah. So they go from
in a certain sense of the word.
Right. They go from playing a fake offense and a bad defense to a bad offense and an insanely good defense. So, that's cool. That used to be the Vikings. That used to be them. But now it's the Browns? Come on.
At some point this morning, before it had hit noon Central Time, maybe you were sitting at a bar, maybe you were sitting at a home, maybe you were sitting in your pajamas, and you were hoping upon hope for a Carson Wentz-fueled comeback. And that wasn't good. That's not a position anyone should be in. There may be you could probably collect a class action lawsuit for all Vikings fans for having to cheer for Carson Wentz at this point, but you may be entitled to compensation. You may be entitled to compensation for being in a situation where you had to hope upon hope for this, despite a terrible series of let's shill first. Apologies.
Oh yeah.
Let's do this first. If you enjoy the show and would like access to things like the Discord, bonus episodes, all that, you can go to patreon.com/NorseCode for $3.50 a month or a little less for the year subscription. You get access to all of that. Special thank you to Benjamin Ostaby and Ethan Santerre. Also, Zachary and Zach, two separate listeners. But thank you for supporting us over on Patreon. You can also go to paypal.me/NorseCode as well for a one-time donation. Or you can go to norsecode.threadless.com for any number of wonderful pieces of Norse Code merchandise, including the t-shirts, baby onesies, and all of that. Let's get into the recap, and I can unleash the full snark here. I guess the first thing I want to ask you is about the decision to kick the onside, or to go for the onside kick instead of just trying to drill it to the back of the end zone, and what you thought about the decision and how things ended up working out afterwards.
I mean, first of all, how things worked out from a defensive perspective is way better than I think they had any right to expect, forcing a 3-and-out, right? So that's fantastic. I still think the attempt was probably the best. So the problem here is that we don't really have a good understanding of what onside recovery rates are or should be. Now, this onside recovery attempt is not substantially different than the onside recovery attempts in terms of what your strategies can be over the past couple of years. Ever since they forced you to have 5 on each side of the kicker. But yeah, we still haven't had enough attempts to say that we've got a good understanding of what the percentages are. And so I don't know what the percentages are, but I think if you decide to boot it downfield, right? Your only option is probably to boot it at the back of the end zone to save time. And the onside kick only took 4 seconds off the clock, so that was nice. But you can't have it be returned. So that's one thing that you have to keep in mind. The other thing, of course, is that with more space to work with, maybe they'll be more aggressive. I don't know, but a failure of the onside kick, which is what happened, gives you theoretically the same odds to produce a 3-and-out as just a touchback with 4 more seconds. So you really have to judge whether or not the percentage chance of you recovering the onside kick is worth that difference. And because we don't know, I would say probably you want your percentage to be at least 20% or higher. And that seems really high given the history of onside kicks. So probably it was a bad decision, but I can't hate it too much. It's just, at some point you just got to do the thing, and all of your odds are low. And so you might as well, make things crazy and weird, which is where the Vikings have been living the past 3 years, in their defense. So I don't mind that too much. Getting the 3-and-out was great. Getting 4 lifelines in the process was also great. Which we can get to that now or later. We could start at the end of the game first if you want.
Let's do that.
Yeah, that was crazy because that should have been a pick. I'm not saying they called it wrong on the field. I don't have access to didn't have access to the replay. I'm just going to trust what people on Twitter were telling me, which is that he didn't get 2 feet in. That's not what I mean. What I mean is that the throw should have been a pick. And so the defensive back, James Pierre, should have caught it. And so the Vikings were lucky that he didn't get 2 feet in. It was an interception-worthy throw. He made a bad throw. That should have been the end of it. So they got a new lease on life on that. And then there were 2 consecutive penalties that advanced the Vikings. So you only need 15 yards. Right? Am I right? I think you only need 15 yards.
Yep. And then you just start going backwards.
Yeah. So okay, controversial opinion. That can't happen, in my opinion, I think. So some of this is because of a delay of game penalty, which occurs kind of late, right? But a
After
delay
the
of game
spiking of the ball. Really?
Yeah. Okay. So I don't know if this part you were made aware of. I was as I was walking back to my hotel, I was watching the Vikings presser. O'Connell mentions, and he says multiple times this is not an excuse, but I think it is stupid that this happened. And he's right from his perspective. He shouldn't call it an excuse. I think from the perspective of an outside fan, it's fair to be hey, that's screwed up. They told them 3 minutes before the game that the clock facing Carson Wentz in that situation, but the clock facing the rest of Croke Park was going to be off. And so they wouldn't have access to a play clock. And they didn't know that when they practiced all week. And so, because like one of the things I learned from like talking to Teddy, and he's like, of the history of Vikings quarterbacks has actually been situationally quite good. Maybe like average everything else, but situationally he was quite good. One of the things he always does is he practices looking at the play clock no matter what situation it is. So he knows where in the stadium every play clock is, which is really cool. But that also tells me that's probably not unique to him. That's probably something everybody drills, or at least most people should. And it's not something the Vikings had the ability to drill. And so, you have to have an awareness that that's going to happen. The mic cuts off with 15 seconds left, so you should have an understanding that there are 15 seconds left. So I'm not saying Carson Wentz didn't screw up there. He did, right? But the level of screw up is maybe a little bit smaller in terms of how much you would blame him, but it still is stupid and sucks. And the refs screwed this up too, or I don't know if the refs did. The people in the stadium screwed it up because they kept on telling us it was third down. And I'm surrounded by a bunch of Steelers fans that are like, hey, it's fourth down. And I'm also like, actually, no, that is fourth down. They do have a point. All of these like really mad guys in like black and yellow, they're correct. It should be fourth down. So it took a while to get that right. So yeah, but you can't have to delay a game. Spiking, I think, on third down is dumb. I think you can only spike on first and second down. Like, I feel like you should always have two chances. So you should, in those circumstances, and I think Matt Freese tweeted this out as well, but you should always have two plays, right? The play that you actually run, and then the next play, you just call both plays at the huddle, and then you run the first play, it doesn't go out of bounds, so you go to the line of scrimmage, and you just start running the second play. You shouldn't spike it. There's been a couple of studies into this. I know that both on the analytics side and on kind of the film side, way back even like 15 years ago when people were first starting to really have in-depth football discussions, the people at Advanced Football Analytics and Chris Brown at Smart Football both concluded like most of the time these spikes are just not worth it, because you can run a play in 3-4 seconds and have a chance to actually move the ball. And here the Vikings did have that time, had they not had the 10-second runoff. So you can't be doing a bunch of these things. You can't have. Was that the one where he had an intentional grounding? Was that the same drive?
It was.
I think it was. I'm not going to look it up. Spiritually, it felt correct that's the same. Can't be doing that. And he's flirting with that every time he's out there, right? Like, okay, so in the aggregate, and this is going to be a theme, I think, of this review of this episode. In the aggregate, Carson Wentz's production numbers are actually not that bad. And in fact, technically, they're above average. And in the context of what I'm about to talk about, time to throw and what he does when there's pressure, in the aggregate, his time to throw is pretty decent. It's 2.65 seconds. That's kind of middle of the pack, a little bit faster than the rest of the league. And that's pretty good. But when it's not good, it's really not good. It's super not good. And I think this relates to what Matt Freese was saying in his Carson Wentz scouting report that I had him write before the season started, which it's crazy how much use we're getting out of that, which is unfortunate. But one of the things that he talks about is that Wentz is fairly reliant, at least at this stage in his career, at just hitting his first read. And he's pretty decent at identifying who that should be. And so he's a high percentage first read quarterback. And that's kind of worked out for him. It worked out for him in Indianapolis until the final 3 games or so. But when it's not there, he hesitates. And I don't know if his processing speed is slow or if he thinks he needs to just trust the receiver to get it. I don't know what it is. But he freezes a little bit a lot of those times. And so that's why you get like that insane Patrick Queen sack, right? Where it's just like I'm in the stands and I'm like, oh no. Have you seen the viral clip of was it Jordan Morgan yelling, "Run, Jordan," when Myles Garrett just dusts him and he doesn't even touch him?
Yes.
Yeah. So I heard that in the stands. Like somebody, I think a German person, was aware enough of this meme that he was like, "Run, Carson," but in like a German accent. And I lost it. That was so funny, but also like you should have listened to the German guy behind me. You should have run. That was crazy. Like you didn't see that guy at all. He almost killed you. That we almost witnessed another death at Croke Park, which is a very insensitive joke, but I at least flesh it out in my piece.
I was gonna go off on a thing about how I was disappointed you didn't do a German accent there, but no, you
I went further
to make it worse. Okay,
yeah,
good.
No, for sure, in the spirit of the show.
Yes.
But like it worse, but in a less cancelable way, if that makes sense. Less, but not non. But like when it's not working for him, it's crazy not working for him. And when it is, he's getting rid of the ball really quickly. And there are like moments where sometimes it's like a pre-delegated read. And this one I tweeted out. Again, it's like when you get the perspective inside the stadium, it's like I immediately see that Jordan Addison is lined up one-on-one against a DB. I think it was Darius Slay. And and the safety up top is on the opposite side of the field because that's where Justin Jefferson is. And the Steelers don't rotate their safeties, right? We had that discussion when Nick Farabaugh was our guest. And so if you see single high safety, that's probably what you're getting. So you're probably getting cover 3 or man coverage. And that doesn't matter if you just run a go route because those are now the same thing for the perspective of Jordan Addison. And so I was like, oh, yeah, you just gotta snap the ball and throw it up. Jordan Addison does not win his release, or maybe he doesn't win it cleanly, but in my opinion, he doesn't win his release. So Darius Slay is actually kind of staying with him, and Carson has already uncorked the ball. I think most quarterbacks probably do this. I'm not saying like, hey, maybe you should have checked if he won the release. But yeah, it's kind of like emblematic of who he is. It's like, oh, well, you've got the thing. You've got the look you want, so now you got to do it. And not kind of check if the look has materialized the way you need it to. Luckily, it was, to the outside shoulder, and Jordan Addison won a contested catch, which, I mean, his hands were not good in that game, but at least he got that one. And so that worked out. But, like, if it's not there, if like the Steelers happen to rotate or a stunt is confusing the protection or whatever, he's holding onto that ball. And then if he does see the pressure, he's doing all the shenanigans that lead to that intentional grounding penalty where he like goes backwards. And just like JJ McCarthy, he thinks he's faster than he is because, for a lot of his life, he might have been, right? Like he's just faster than the guy chasing him. And that's just like not true anymore. For JJ McCarthy, it's because you're in the NFL. For Carson, it's a combination of that and you're old now, which is also a lesson Aaron Rodgers learned in this game. But yeah, you can't be spinning backwards and trying to figure out if you can like Fran Tarkenton your way out of this. You can't. I know you can't. You should know you can't. And so now that you're in the grasp, I get why you want to throw that ball away and not make it a sack. I totally get it. But dog, you have to be 100% sure that thing is going past the line of scrimmage or something. That was nuts. That was so stupid. And you're just going to get that sometimes. You're just going to get something that is so stupid and you can't. And so now you're moving backwards again. And wow, we were so close to having something in field goal range, which is so much more generous this year, the concept of field goal range, than it was last year or 3 years ago. And so the bar is so low. It's so low. They gave you so many free yards and first downs, untimed, like for free. And you didn't like do the thing, the one thing. So that sucked.
We sat and watched an attempt. It wasn't a good attempt, but it was an attempt. And if we're going to talk about Carson Wentz, I think we can start from the very beginning. And it was a man who was repeatedly sacked. At one point, he looked hurt. Like, I don't know if anything's come out since the game about any potential injury, but like he wasn't looking great. And it's not
Carson?
and it wasn't even just that he, runs at a speed that would have Kirk Cousins lapping him in a race or anything, but like it wasn't good. And there was a lot of times when he was behind the line and he was afraid.
Yeah, so he did technically get hurt. He got an eye injury, This is nuts to me, actually. So after the game, Kevin O'Connell is like, yeah, he got an eye injury. And then I think it was Ben Gessing was like, hey, the eye thing, did he suck after that? He didn't say it like that. Ben knows how to ask questions. But he was just like, so like when he got poked in the eye, were there any mistakes that maybe you could attribute to that? He said it even better than that. But like basically that, right? And Kevin O'Connell wasn't like, no, we checked it out and he was fine. You don't got to like, but like, no, instead he was like, well, it was his left eye and that's where TJ Watt was. And it was 2 plays after he got hurt that he threw the pick. And I'm just like, what the hell? He can't see out of the eye. You can't have. Najee Harris is not a quarterback. And so the fact that he got an eye injury as a running back is sad, but it's not nearly as devastating as if it's a quarterback who has to like read coverages, who like depth perception is the thing you have to have, and for that you do need 2 eyes. Like that's kind of non-negotiable. And he throws the pick like 2 plays after he hurts his left eye, where now it's a blind spot. That's absolutely crazy that would be a thing. Also, we do have another non-throwing left chart. It's a lot less not throw left than some of the McCarthy charts, but now we have to wonder if it's the offense. Because Christian Darrisaw is back, so that's like what a lot of people are saying about the McCarthy not throw left charts. It's like, well, Darrisaw's not there. It's like, well, he's there now, and now we're literally blind to the left. So I don't know what's going on with that, because it sounds like that's what the offense is doing and not what a quarterback is doing, and that's just such a strange thing. That's like Cliff Kingsbury would do that because he was running an old school air raid offense and he would just keep receivers on the same side. And so it's like, well, DeAndre Hopkins is always on the right side. I'm just going to throw it to him the whole time. That makes it. That's not what's happening here. So I don't know. Anyway, so Carson Wentz did get hurt, but that's not what you're talking about. You're talking about like, hey, maybe like he got injured in the moving part, like the leg. And I'm killing this podcast.
Leg or ribs or something. He was.
No, I think he's just slow now.
Oh, well,
I think that's it.
That's comforting because he was playing like ass. Like this was not.
So again, I do want to point out that technically,
if we're on average, correct.
On average, his expected points added was slightly better than the NFL average. I do want to point that out. Again, that is a production metric and not a quality of play metric. One suggests the other, but it does not demonstrate or prove the other. Some of his passes were crazy accurate and were dropped. Jordan Addison, good example of that. Some of them were nuts inaccurate and dropped. I think TJ Hawkinson had to suffer from that. Plus, there's like a nearly deflected pick that was inaccurate. So, like, I'm not saying like. Because, like, when you take a look at the picks, both of them are a product of, like, defensive line contact somehow, right? Derek Harmon tips one of them, and then TJ Watt just grabs one of them. And I think, like, as a rule, unless it keeps happening, which we are talking about 2 of them, so that maybe we have established a pattern. But generally speaking, you're like, well, that just happens sometimes. You don't always blame the quarterback for defensive line deflection picks. And like if we do that, that's fine. But then you have to then also maybe assign him partial credit for interceptions that should have happened that didn't, like the one at the end that should have ended the game with like a minute 4 left, and then also like a bunch of deflections that were probably caused by poor ball location. Which again, like it's so like Anthony Richardson last year would have like 1 pass out of every 10 that was an insane dime, where it's like, well, if you were really this inaccurate, if you were really scattershotting it, it wouldn't be 1 out of 10. It'd be 1 out of like 80. And so at some point you do have the ability to just place the ball just in a very specific spot when you're trying, but you can't do it normally. And Carson seems to be doing the same thing, where like 3 or 4 like passes were outstandingly well placed, and 2 of them were drops, which is so frustrating. And then the rest were just like, what are you doing? Why would that ball go there and not there? Other things happened. Jordan Addison got caught by a linebacker who, in Addison's defense, is the fastest linebacker in the history of next gen stats, I guess. That was crazy. I mean, like a bunch of people are like, well, Jordan Addison like slowed down. And I don't know if they mean he slowed down because he thought he made it to the end zone, or if they mean he slowed down because the ball was like slightly underthrown, which in that case, I actually don't mind if the ball is slightly underthrown.
Yeah,
but
it was the underthrown portion of that.
Okay, that's what most people. Okay, well, okay, I don't support that interpretation of how Peyton Wilson caught him then, because like that happens a lot, and the guy doesn't get caught. Someone was like, well, Peyton Wilson had a faster 40 at the combine than Jordan Addison, which holy crap, my God, good work, guy. But B, I still don't think that's enough because like again, he may have a bit more of a start to it than Addison does, but the angle and distance is so crazy what ground he has to cover in order to even given these advantages that he has, the ground he has to cover is nuts. And Addison is the deep threat. Like that's the point of Jordan Addison right now. He can do other stuff. He was a Blitnikoff winner for a reason, but like his role right now is the deep threat, which at least nominally means that you should probably be the fastest guy. If not, the other fastest guys should be like cornerbacks. But like that's it. And so, you know, we can point to situations like, hey, Justin Jefferson has once again not worn the correct cleats. Everyone remembers probably the one slip when he had the ball, but there's at least one other time, probably more, that I saw him slip. And I think he just wants to wear the one kind of cleat. That's the one thing he's comfortable with. And so because I know that the team prepared for this game with the understanding that they would have to treat it like it's a wet surface. I know that for a fact. That's reporting. I just did some reporting. And part of that is getting the right cleats. And I don't think many other people slipped. Certainly not Peyton Wilson. But there was not a ton of other slipping. It was mostly Jefferson a couple of times, which tells me that's probably a him problem. Which, like, that's a crazy specific problem for the best receiver in the league to have. Which, by the way, he had like 126 yards or something, right? That's wow. Didn't feel like it. I mean, I knew about it because I had the bet on the Viking squad show that he'd get 25 plus in both halves, which barely hit the second half, which is crazy. But like that's another problem that needs to be like kind of resolved. Like, hey, Justin Jefferson, you gotta not slip so much, and I think this is controllable. But yeah, so you've got like all of these problems, right? But then you do have to account for, to bring it back to that original point, do have to account for how he's creating problems that aren't punished. And I think in this case, they do balance each other out. Like we talk about dropped interceptions sometimes. We talk about interceptable passes or deflected passes that turn into interceptions that aren't the quarterback's fault. Here, I think they balance out. And so I think probably this is a situation where something like a PFF grade for him, which I think is like 63 or something provisionally, is going to look a lot worse than his production stats, which I think is appropriate here because I think his decisions that make sense. Also, like the interception to Deshaun Elliott that was tipped by Derek Harmon. I don't know if that was a good throw anyway. Like that's a crazy tight window to test. I don't know that you were ever going to get that. So I don't know how much I want to absolve him of that. But yeah, that's my take on that kind of broad level question.
Well, I mean, we can talk about the passes that he threw, or we can talk about the times when he held onto the ball for too damn long, and the offensive line was doing him no favors, and he was taking a number of hits and sacks.
Yeah.
A lot.
We should talk about the offensive line.
We really should.
Christian Darrisaw was good. After that, I have some issues.
After that, we've got injuries. After that, we've got replacements. After that, we've got potential war crimes. Like, it was not good.
Yeah, which again, in the history of the stadium, the one sack that I think people attributed to Christian Darrisaw from Nick Herbig, I wrote down in my phone as I was like watching the game. Right, I wrote down this is probably not on Christian Darrisaw. I think it's on Carson for dropping back too deep and then not hitching up into the pocket. And then, I'm looking at the PFF grades live during the game. They agree. And so, which, I don't always agree with PFF grades, but here, especially the live ones, because they sometimes, but here it does really match up really well with kind of what I was thinking. I asked someone else, like, hey, can you watch this play for me? And they agreed. So that means he only really gave up 2 hurries on 58 dropbacks. 58. The Vikings dropped back to pass 58 times. Again, they were like down multiple scores for most of the game, but like, holy crap. So he had 2 hurries on 58 dropbacks, which is essentially a rate of 1 hurry per a normal game, functionally. That's pretty good. And he was also a really good run blocker. He was the only one who was a really good run blocker. But there's that. Brian O'Neill, a good 11 snaps from him, and then the knee. And, oh, Christ, dude. So Justin School comes in. He has a terrible time against a Hall of Fame edge rusher. Yeah, okay. And also like Nick Herbig. Like it's just everything's bad. Ryan Kelly gets a concussion halfway through the game. So then we get Michael Juergens back. It's kind of the reunion we didn't want, I guess. And then he kind of gets hurt, and so we have to like figure out like, oh, is the backup going to go in? Are we out? Are we out of offensive linemen? Because you only bring like 8 actives to the game. No one brings like 10, right? Because they're on it. Like the reason you would have 10 on your roster is that 1 or 2 of them are on the inactive list. So I think they might be out after that. It's because Blake Brandell's already out there. He's not having a good time. Will Fries, I mean, he was the least worst of the 4 positions. So, after like Brown O'Neill left and Justin School came in, he was, it wasn't good, but it was like not as bad as the others, which, yeah, I don't know. He's been having a bad year so far, so I want to give him that one.
Yeah, this wasn't great.
Yeah, it wasn't great.
Not great, Bob.
Well, Jordan Mason was good. He didn't get to do anything with being good, but he was good. He was great at shedding contact and avoiding tackles. He did get kind of more, I believe he had as many yards after contact as he had yards, which is a bad sign. And a lot of times that's a running back statistic because they don't have good vision and they're not avoiding contact, and so they're creating a lot of the backfield pressure that they're experiencing. A lot of people treat it as an offensive line stat, and sometimes it's not. This time, it's 100% an offensive line stat. He got hit in the backfield so often, so quickly, and not because he had poor vision or poor wiggle. So he played well, but like it didn't matter because he averaged like 3 yards a carry.
What was Hawkinson doing out there today? I don't know that he was playing football, but he was on the field.
I was so surprised when he actually caught a pass, and I wrote it down on my phone. I was like, oh, yeah, that guy. Hey, what's up? He had a couple of targets. One of them was like way off. It was way to his back shoulder, so it like clattered off of him. I think like in one of the 2-minute situations near the end of the game, because that one felt like it could have been a pick, but he like re-tipped it to go out of bounds, which that's good. But yeah, one of the reasons people were excited about this season and about the supporting cast that McCarthy had was because like Hawkinson was supposed to be good, and I don't know, he's not doing much. Sometimes it's on the quarterbacks for not like targeting, but like I don't know, I'm not feeling some of this.
No, and it's not leading to any production. He was, and just looking at how he's been this season, this hasn't exactly been. I believe statistically this is going to end up being his worst, but like this hasn't exactly been, even in blocking, has not been something that you would want to pay for.
Yeah, this sucks. I want to take time to like watch all these snaps he's not targeted on to see if he's doing anything that seems different, to see like maybe there's a reason he's not getting a target or something, or if like the quarterbacks are just like doing that, because I could believe that, right? Neither of these quarterbacks are playing well, so they could just be doing that. But yeah, right now the production isn't there, and that's an open question for like why that might be the case.
It's clear that we should not have gotten rid of Johnny Munt.
Best tight end 3 in the league, man.
best tight end 3 in the league. Well, we've talked about the receivers. I suppose we can talk about the defense. And, I mean, actually, you know what? Let's talk about special teams for a moment, because Isaiah Rodgers blocked a field goal. That was important.
Dude.
Isaiah Rodgers is definitely outplaying his contract at the moment.
This guy is nuts. He recorded the fastest play in the history of Next Gen Stats today, which, I mean, it wasn't like he didn't do anything on the play. Let me be clear. Like, he didn't, but he almost did, which is impressive because he was on the other side of the field. On the DK Metcalf catch and run, he hit, was it 23 point something? Crap, I don't have it anymore. But he hit like over 23 miles per hour, which had, like, again, in the Next Gen Stats era, no player's ever done this with or without the ball. That was crazy. So that's the same speed that allows him to block a field goal. I almost forgot that they blocked the field goal because, like, the game sucked so much that, like, talking about it feels weird. But, like, yeah, that did happen. They did do that. Isaiah Rodgers is nuts. I love him. How is he, like, there's a possibility that we have evidence that he could be the fastest player. That feels wrong to say, right? Because it's like we've been so used to these other guys being able to, and it's just like this guy, Isaiah Rodgers, you know, who, like, got banned from the league for a year for, like, gambling. Like, that guy is the fastest now.
Well, should we talk about Aaron Rodgers dinking and dunking his way to victory?
Oh my God! Yeah, sure.
That's exactly what that was.
Yeah, well, so he didn't attempt to pass over 20. I believe he only attempted 3 passes over 10 yards, which is nuts. He had an average depth of target of like 3.7. It was so, like, I want to say it was infuriating that it worked, but it kind of almost didn't. And yeah, I know they scored 24 points, but, like, if you take away one play, and obviously I'm talking about the 80-yard play, but that if you take away one play, he averages 5.7 yards per attempt. And I think we do this a lot for a lot of players. We're like, oh, if you take away their best play, this is what it looks like. But the drop off here in what his actual, like, production looks like with and without one play is so much more dramatic than it is for a lot of other players who throw only like 20 passes a game, and then you take away, like, their big play. Like, they drop, like, because he goes from 9.1 yards per attempt to 5.7 just from one play. And he didn't, like, if he was the one who produced that play, well, then it wouldn't feel fair to take it away and talk about his production in that context. But he wasn't. Ivan Pace was, because it's essentially the Vikings kind of ran country cover 2, which they never run. And I guess that confused Ivan Pace. I don't know. So there was, and Greg Olsen apparently broke it down in the broadcast. Again, I was at the game, but I was able to watch the awful announcing clip tweeted out of Greg Olsen breaking it down, which he is so good. I love him. He should be on every broadcast. But he breaks it down and he says, hey, so this motion here, Ben Skoranek, he motions across the formation. That moves, I think it was Josh Metellus across the formation. That kicks the zones around because the Vikings were still in zone coverage, but they're moving against motion as if they're in man coverage. They're one of the teams that does that. It's very confusing, and I'm glad that they do that. I think that's really cool. But one of the problems is that it also might confuse your defenders. And so Ivan Pace has a hook or curl zone, just basically the zone right on top of the right tackle. So, you know, that intermediate zone. And he instead buzzes to the flat like it's cover 3 or something. I don't know. And so now you've got 2 defenders in the flat, one of them the cornerback who's supposed to be there, and one of them a linebacker. And DK Metcalf is open. And that's only part of the play. So Ivan Pace, in his coverage assignment, gave up an 80-yard touchdown. But he's not the one reason that was 80 yards. Bad tackling angles, not being as fast as DK Metcalf, which is not like a huge shame, I guess, but like maybe you want one of those guys. Well, you do. You have Isaiah Rodgers, I suppose. You want that guy to be near the fast guy. Yeah, there were bad tackling angles from like Josh Metellus, and for at least there were 2 missed tackles on the play in addition to that. And Rodgers didn't produce any of those things. Like, okay, Rodgers identified that Ivan Pace abandoning his zone would get him a short completion, but like he maybe gets credit for a little bit of the yak yards after that. But that's mostly a DK Metcalf play. So Rodgers has 200 yards. 80 of those come on one play. That play is a catch and run. The Vikings got beat by fake offense. And the thing is, like we talked about this with Nick, like, hey, the Vikings do this. They give up all of these short underneath things. They're not as good tacklers as you would expect them to be based off of that description, but they also have a great defense. So it works out. Like it turns out throwing short every single down sucks. It makes you bad at football. Well, that's mostly true if you do the things you're supposed to do. But it turns out if you can't tackle, they end up looking really good. So, yeah, Rodgers got rid of the ball in like it depends on whether or not you're using next gen or PFF or whatever, but it was like 2.18 seconds, which like over the course of a season, the fastest I think, and I haven't like gone back and double or triple checked my intuition, but the fastest season long time to throw is around like 2.4 seconds. That was like Tom Brady a number of years ago. Like it just crazy fast is like 2.4 seconds. This is the fastest time to throw in any single game this year. The 2.18 or the 2.16 or whatever the measure turns out to be. No other game this year had a faster time to throw from a quarterback. And so, like, the Vikings were winning at the line of scrimmage and they weren't able to create a ton of pressure as a product of it. And it turns out also when they were blitzing, it was working. He was averaging 6 yards against the blitz. It was just the one thing. It was just the one play because like everything else kind of sucked for him. He really honestly did. And so even though the Vikings played to a game plan that, as Nick pointed out, kind of works in the Steelers' favor, they want, you to give up these kind of intermediate zones so that they can just pepper the field with them. The Vikings also want that because they know you're going to make a mistake, and kind of basically happened. But the Vikings couldn't take advantage of it because they had some of these explosives come in. Also, I would argue that like sometimes the Vikings offense put them in a position where like they were in a spot they didn't have to march that far down the field, right? Like, the pick that gave him the ball at the 35, getting the ball at the 46, like that. I mean, that like a good defense is still going to give up points in those situations. So that's like responsible for some of it. But yeah, the defense, I'm not going to say the defense was good or that it was all because of one play, but rather that the way that we think of this defense changes so dramatically just because of one play that we would say, hey, maybe the defense didn't do everything they needed to, but that was, an above average performance, and that's pretty decent, and you just kind of need the offense to catch up. But the one play changes that perception so significantly that you remember that, and then you also remember a 71-yard drive, and then you also remember a 56-yard drive. So, like, that sucks. I don't know how else to put it. Jalen Redmond was good, though.
Was literally about to say, shout out to Jalen Redmond for that
was great.
Fantastic sack where he just tossed Rodgers.
He just throws him. And, like, there was no flag. I was like, okay, I can't see why that would be a penalty, but, like, it feels like it should be a penalty because of the way the NFL is treating quarterbacks. I want this so bad, and I'm so uncomfortable. And then nothing happened, and it was like, yeah, you keep throwing that guy around, please. He had the 2 sacks. He had a tackle for loss. He didn't have much else in the game, but I don't need much else. That was great.
Look, it's Aaron Rodgers getting hit. We can all
I'll live with it, right?
Yeah.
We didn't get a ton from Jonathan Allen. We didn't get a ton from Javon Hargrave. We got a ton from Grenard. He got 4 pressures on 25 dropbacks, which is crazy. So right now, if that holds up, if that preliminary count is verified, Grenard is ranked second in the NFL in pressure rate among all edge rushers who've had at least 50 pass rushing snaps, which he's had 100. So that's like a pretty decently low bar. So that's a huge universe of players. He's tied for second with 3 other players. He's like ahead of Joey Bosa and just right beneath Nick Bonito. So he's having a great season. He's like 4th in total pressures right now. Again, if that holds up. But Grenard was good. The Dallas Turner penalty, I saw the replay and now I'm mad. Did you see this?
I did not.
Yeah, so he like hits a player in the helmet, right?
Yes, I did see that.
Yeah, and so that's a penalty, and I get it. But right before that, that player took his helmet and jerked it around, like it could have been a neck injury. And it like I get that they always get the guy who responds, but like that's so annoying.
Yeah,
like
it's going to end up being a fine on Monday or Tuesday, but it still sucks the fact that it wasn't called. It turns into I know you don't watch the show, but it turns into the Shoresy thing where Shoresy says they get the guy who retaliates every time. It's the first thing they teach you in hockey. Like this is just what happens.
Yeah, no. I mean, no, exactly. It's what happens, and it sucks, and it's annoying. But what I thought was kind of interesting is that what I was watching is Jalen Redmond started getting into somebody's face, which, hey, shout out to you again, dude. And then they responded, and no one threw a flag. Like, it was just a little bit off camera, so I don't think anyone saw it, but I was there. So I get to, see him get up in someone's face, be annoying about it, which is fine. And then they hit him in the helmet, and I was like, oh, we're going to get offsetting penalties now, because I assumed the unnecessary roughness was on the Vikings. I didn't actually get to see what it was. But I just figured, Vikings, right? So, but no, it was just the one penalty. There was no offsetting. This guy did not get a flag for... And again, I get that, but Jesus Christ, that sucks, dude. So I want to say, hey, Dallas Turner shouldn't have done that, and that's kind of one of the defining moments of his game. But other than that, which is I get where he's coming from. Don't do it, but I understand. Other than that, it was fine. So you get and also Byron Murphy, 1 target, no receptions. Right now he's I think if it holds, number 1 in the NFL in snaps per reception, coverage snaps per reception. So 12.5, every 12.5 coverage snaps he sees. Oh, target, not reception. He sees 1 target, so he's number 1 in the NFL on that. That's pretty cool. He's playing really good. And we talked about Isaiah Rodgers. Jeff Okudah was not notably a disaster. I mean, it was, again, no one has bad stats except whoever had to deal with DK Metcalf on the 1 play. So, I don't know. Harrison Smith only had 17 snaps. So that, he's not back yet. So I guess we'll see how that goes. I don't know. I like Jalen Redmond. That's my takeaway. Jonathan Allen and Javon Hargrave, please do more. You did great the first game, and that's it.
Well, I don't know if we could talk about coaching or if we just wrap this up, because this wasn't exactly the most fun game to watch. It wasn't the opposite of last week by any stretch of the imagination, but it was not great. And the Vikings are now off to play the Browns, who are going to be, as you said, a fantastic defense with a 10-cent offense. And I'm not entirely sure if the Vikings are much better than that.
Yeah, because the Vikings defense is pretty good this year. And I understand the Browns just gave up 34 to Detroit, so it's going to look a little bit different.
We're going to give up 34 to Detroit. We're going to give up 48 to Detroit. This is just how it's going to go this year.
Right. Yeah. So I don't want to knock a team too much for giving up 34 to Detroit. But I don't know. The Browns defense is frighteningly good. I think they're better than the Vikings defense right now. And they really build around the Vikings pressure points, right? Because if the Browns defense was built on having outstanding Darrelle Revis corners, you'd be oh, I'm really excited for that matchup, Justin Jefferson against the best corner, or whatever, right? And Greg Newsome is good. Don't get me wrong, he's very good. But we're not speaking the same language when we're talking about quarterbacks and being at a Darrelle Revis level or something like that. The Browns defense is good for the reasons the Vikings offense is bad, quarterback excluded, which is that the offensive line is bad, which, you can say, hey, Arif, but that's not fair. They're injured. They're going to be injured next week. It doesn't really matter why they're bad, because they're bad right now. That's all you need to really know. I think Christian Darrisaw is playing really well, and also that he is not moving at his full speed yet. Like, it doesn't feel like he's moving at the level of movement that we usually expect from him, which has not been an enormous problem, which is a crazy thing to say given that he's played against like TJ Watt. But it is like a problem, and it's going to be an incredible problem when it's Myles Garrett. Like really athletic, fully healthy tackles sometimes just lose him. Like, he's just incredibly fast. Mason Graham had an outstanding game like 2 weeks ago where he had an incredible pass rush win rate. They're blitzing like Carson Schwechlinger, who's like a rookie that's doing outstandingly well for them. Alex Wright, their like third round pick from a couple years ago, is playing really well. Shelby Harris is playing out of his mind. They're even there's an undrafted free agent that got Aiden Huntington. He made the roster. I'm gonna remember him because I like wrote about him as like a pro day standout, as like one of like 20 people I wrote about. And he was intriguing, and it turns out that athleticism is functional. He can use it, and he's really good. Like, this is a crazy good defensive line, and oof.
Yeah, maximum size oof. The Mina Kimes image on Twitter.
Yeah.
That's what we're potentially looking at. Well, is there anything else that we need to cover on the game itself?
I mean, how do we think Ryan Wright did? He's probably fine, right?
I mean, our punt game aside, like, fine. Nothing terrible happened there. There were no terrible shanks.
Okay. Receivers, nothing. Josh Oliver, I don't know, man. I wish you could catch a pass. That pass, that target was deflected, but like, still, I wish you could catch a pass. I don't got my. Eric Wilson, highlight player. Not a consistently good player, but a highlight player. His highlights are really great. He flies to the ball. He's fantastic. He also like overruns plays sometimes. But he's like pretty reasonable in coverage, which was the thing that he was good at when he was originally a Viking, and he was really bad at run defense. Now it seems like he's doing run defense pretty well, which is great. I think maybe being in the Flores system is uniquely enabling to him because he doesn't see as many guards in his face, and so he doesn't have to like beat up blocks. But Eric Wilson is pretty fun. Not amazing, but like pretty fun. Ivan Pace is just a blitzer, and Blake Cashman needs to come back. Those are the rest of the takes. Defense out.
Let's head over to the mailbag. First question is from Drawplay Dave, who asks, how did it feel to receive the first true Carson Wentz experience for the Vikings?
Bad. What do you think? Come on, it's always bad. It's all everything bad. No good. What did you say?
Watching the game I was in Castleton, North Dakota this morning I watched the game with a bunch of people who would typically be those who would cheer on NDSU. And I got a lot of there was a lot of swearing at Carson Wentz during the game. You would have fit in actually at this particular location. There was like the stereotypical like grouchy grandma who like nothing makes her happy. She was also at the bar, and she was ranting about Carson, and like, yeah, it was. You haven't been good in 4 years, I believe, was something she had yelled. So you would have fit in central North Dakota. I say central; it's 20 miles from Fargo, but you would have fit in. At the Vets Club.
No, it does.
Castleton, North Dakota.
Everything outside the Red River Valley is central or west. Like, I get it. I get what you're going for. But yeah, Carson Wentz. Nothing good can happen. It can only bad happen.
Let's go to Kenneth Allen, who asks, for Arif's DreamWorks corner, who has the worst smirk face in the world, and why is it Aaron Rodgers?
Okay, that's a very funny name for a corner with that question. It's Aaron Rodgers because like he doesn't have like the reason the Pixar smirk, or the DreamWorks smirk, I should say, is so annoying is because they use it as like a substitute for like having like sincere emotions in your movies. It's like the Marvel problem where it's like, oh, we had like a touching moment, we're going to undercut it with snark, or we're going to like lampshade it because we're all very aware, we're very smart, we know what the audience is because we're secretly in the audience. And that's annoying, and it like robs movies of their emotional impact, and it tells you that these characters, subtly it tells you that these characters are not really worth caring about because they don't really care about stuff. And when a real life person acts like that, it's inhuman. It's the guy is built just to say stuff that is mean and snarky and not that funny, and then get mad when people report it. Like he did that with the thing today about I'd rather have come on Monday. And like he's like, ESPN like took me out of context, and it's like, no, you always say people take you out of context. Well, and he's saying like they do it all the time. So he knows he's always saying it. But the reason you think everyone's taking you out of context is because you can't communicate well. That's the most generous interpretation I can give. Because the other interpretation is that you intentionally say stupid stuff and then accuse people of taking you out of context. And I think that's a reasonable interpretation. And so you always have some like thing to talk about. Some like, I hate saying like victim narrative, right? Because it's always like a-holes who are like, yeah, you're being victim. But that's what he does. He makes himself a victim so he can always have a chip on his shoulder and then like use it and weaponize it. And so he started like, I asked Nick, I think off the record, I don't know, maybe it was during the show, but I asked like, hey, did anyone ask him a question about like when, like what he thinks of the schedule? No, he said it apropos of nothing. He was just like, I wish we came here on Monday. And it's like, dude, the NFL prevented the Steelers from traveling on Monday. I was like, what do you want? And then he's like, ESPN, he takes time in this presser of this game. ESPN took me out of context. I didn't say like the Steelers were bad for doing it or the NFL was bad for doing it. Just generally it would have been nice. And it's like, God, come on, dude. Always does this. And it's always with a smirk. Inhuman.
Yeah. Also, how has Dallas Turner played this year? It seems like he hasn't been living up to his position or draft cost. Is that right, or is he showing up on film but not the stat sheet? Assuming I'm not way off with disappointment, is he at least progressing from last year?
I think he is. I think the way that people talked about him in the preseason was maybe unfair to him. He's not playing at the level that like, oh, he's bigger now, and that means he's gooder now. Like that, okay, that didn't bear out. Fine, fair enough. But I think he's playing all right. He's got a reasonable amount of pressures. Some of the pressures are on blocks, so you don't want to like over-index them. But I don't know. He's not getting like tricked. I don't know how else to put it. Like, you know, when Everson Griffin was good, but then he just get demolished on play action, or not play action, read option.
Yes.
Yeah, and it was just like his kryptonite. Dallas Turner's not like he's not in any spot where his eyes are bad, which is like a really good place to start. We know he's a good athlete. I agree that maybe his I mean, it'd be nice if his sack total was higher, but I agree that like maybe seeing these pressures isn't satisfying, and he only has like 4 tackles or something like that. But I think that like just in terms of the way he's setting the edge, the way that he's reading plays correctly, I think he's fine. I think maybe he's not living up to his draft position. And so if that's kind of the locus of your criticism, that's probably fair. That's probably accurate. But it's not as if he's like a liability out there, which again, you'd spend like a first round pick on this guy. Like liability is a pretty low bar. So yeah, again, depending on what your frame of reference is. But I think that as an asset to a team, he's like playing all right.
Let's go to Patrick O'Neill, who asks, can Arif use his Seahawks influence to get Sam Darnold back? Also, related, Genderless Fraternal Order asks, is this game an ironic punishment for fans who soured on Sam Darnold?
I'm going to go the second one, yes. The first question, No, I don't have Seahawks connections. I'm not a Seahawks guy. I don't write about the Seahawks. Not a Seahawks fan. And also, I think Sam Darnold's pretty happy where he is. I think that one's going to be a tough one to swing.
Yeah. Matt Nelson asks, what would your plan be to fix a team that's missing 3 starting O-linemen, starting a backup quarterback, while trying not to be predictable with short game passing, wide receivers that are more suited to deep and intermediate routes, and a quarterback who apparently doesn't want to / struggles throwing short?
So I would say throw short. Now, did you point out that the quarterback doesn't want to do that? Yes. Did you point out that the receivers are maybe not quite built for that? Yeah. But like, I don't know, like if you're on the ground 5 yards behind the line of scrimmage, that's worse than if the ball is in the air and maybe will be caught, I guess. So I don't know. It sucks. I think that, I mean, obviously there's like a lot of ways that you can produce in those situations that kind of limit the problems of the offensive line, but it's all gimmicks. Like it's all workarounds. Like the reason that teams with good offensive lines like win a ton of games is because that's a really important part of football. You can't get around that. It's like the Chiefs and then all these teams with good offensive lines. Like that's it. Those are your two options, right? And sometimes not the Chiefs because of the offensive line. Like that's what matters, right? So like you can try to get around it, but it's all, kind of one trick ponies, and you just got to find as many tricks as you can. So like, yeah, motion and, strange kind of run concepts where you do kind of like the end arounds and the handoffs and, the jet sweeps and stuff like that. That'll help, especially because you've got, Addison back. And so you can use them in that way. But yeah, I just like, if there are ways to kind of induce cornerbacks to press coverage, you can run some of these like one-step deep shots, which you don't get a ton of. But it's really hard to induce a defense to do that when you have Justin Jefferson. They don't want to do that because you have Justin Jefferson. So they're going to play a little bit further off. They're not going to jam as often. They know that the other receiver is kind of probably second in the progression most of the time. And so kind of the disrupting the timing is not as important. So yeah, it's tough to kind of produce that. Like maybe you start with slants and that'll like, roll the cornerbacks and the safeties up, and then you kind of hit them deep. But like the answers are stuff like jet motion and play action, maybe like a naked bootleg, which the Vikings are just like not doing, I guess. So maybe that's a place to start. They just like don't do that now. It's a really good question, actually. Maybe they should do that because that a moving pocket helps, but they're all tricks. Sometimes you just need a good offensive line, especially if you can't throw short.
The gaming nerd, speaking of the offensive line, asks, considering how much of the offseason was used to address our pretty terrible offensive line, have we regressed to be the worst offensive line in football? Just want to know if our suffering is historic in any way or what it might take to make it historic.
We're the Vikings' history here is unkind. Well, I guess it's kind to the nature of the question. It's hard, right? Again, can always get worse, right? But like, I don't know. The Vikings' offensive lines have been like real bad, and I don't think the pressure rate in this game was like 30%. Like, I understand, like, you see 6 sacks and you're like, wow, that was a bad offensive line performance. And maybe on those 6 sacks, they were bad performances from the offensive line. But that doesn't tell you about the other 20, or in this case, 40, 50 snaps that were in this game that were pass protection. And they didn't give up a ton of hurries. And it turns out maybe 3 of those sacks aren't even on them. And so when you look at like, oh, well, the offensive line is maybe responsible for 3 sacks out of 58 and then a couple more pressures on top of it. Like, I'm not going to pretend they played well. They didn't. But I remember 2015. Like TJ Clemmings was the third option, and he started most of the season. They got so beat up. They signed Jake Long, American Dragon. Like, that's a cartoon character, and he only lasted 1 game. Like it was bad, man. Like, Matt Khalil was in the middle of having an awful season, and then his knee got hurt, and we were sad. Like, that's how bad it was. I don't know, how many ways I can, people were pining for Anthony Herrera. Like, it was bad. This is not that bad. It could get a lot worse, is what I'm saying.
When TJ Clemmings is an option, you're not in a good shot. You're not in a good shape.
They signed Andre Smith to compete with Phil Lodeholt because they were like, Phil Lodeholt might not be healthy this year. And so you had like maybe a 60% shot that you had a reasonably good right tackle. And then Phil Lodeholt gets injured right before training camp and retires. So it's Andre Smith. And then he gets injured during training camp. And it's like, oh, the 4th round pick that was a developmental prospect who doesn't like hitting people? Yeah, well, yeah, I guess he's the guy now.
Yeah. Huh. Next man up. Let's go to the Max Brosmer enthusiast who asks, for Arif's colonialism problem. Corner, rather. The Vikings are undefeated in the United Kingdom, but played badly in Ireland. Should the Vikings advocate for the UK taking over Ireland once again to improve their chances in future Dublin games?
Okay, no. I will say that this is probably guided more by history than it is by anything else, but the Vikings' record of victory, and I mean this historically, on the island of Britain is outstanding, especially if you include the Normans who occupied Normandy in northern France. They're essentially Vikings, like Danes and Scandinavians and stuff like that. And so when the Vikings were invading northern England and Scotland, like Northumbria, they were killing it. They were doing some real nasty stuff and winning a ton. And then they got beaten back by the Anglo-Saxons. And then in 1066, Battle of Hastings, the Normans invaded, and those are historically essentially Vikings. So the English have been irreparably beholden to a Norse genealogy forever, and the Irish have beaten them back. They have kicked the Vikings out of Ireland and the Anglo-Normans out of Ireland time and time again. So this is a historical thing. So you're going to be 100% in England, but you're going to be like 40% in Ireland, and you're just going to have to take that. I think it's just what it has to be.
Also from the Max Brosmer enthusiast, is making Carson Wentz play behind this Vikings O-line punishment for his crime of attending NDSU?
No, the O-line has to get worse, but I like how you're thinking. Yeah, for sure.
Tank B asks, for Arif's The Cranberries Corner, what exactly was going through KOC's head during this game? Do you think he could return, not let it burn, by returning to JJ McCarthy, or do you think that he's going to let Carson Wentz linger? Does he have to? Does he have to let it linger?
Okay, so first of all, outstanding song. Just an incredible song. Second, there's a cover of the song. I sent it to you, right, James? There's a cover of a song by this YouTuber named Alex Belton who does like a ton of covers and stuff. And it shattered me. It's so good. And so many covers of the Cranberries are awful. I actually heard... I didn't actually write this in my piece because I do mention that they were like shouting zombie in the stadium. Oh, I forgot to include the video in the piece. Whatever. They were singing zombie in the stadium, and it felt like awesome. Now, politically, not a ton of people like loved this fact. I discussed that in the piece, but like it feels good, and I'm just like a surface level emotional response. It felt awesome, but like, what are they? Bad Wolf, is that the name of the people who did the zombie cover and like changed the lyrics to include like drone warfare? Bad Wolves. I thought that cover sucked. A lot of people really like that cover. A lot of people think it's one of the best covers they've ever heard. I think they're wrong. But it doesn't matter because the worst cover of Zombie I ever heard was on Tuesday. I was just like walking around Grafton Street. It's this wonderful pedestrian mall. One of the great things about a lot of European cities is how walkable they are. I have walked everywhere. I walked to the stadium from downtown. The only place I didn't walk to was the Dublin Zoo, and that I think is fair. But I walked everywhere, and so I was like walking around this small area, buying gifts for people that maybe it's a bad idea to buy gifts for. That's not for the listeners. That's for James. And
Sure.
And there's like a bunch of buskers along there, and yeah, I love it. And a lot of these people are really talented. And they are super playing into the fact that there's a ton of tourists here right now. So they're playing like really classic, like you think this is Irish music and I know it, so I'm going to play it type stuff, right? And so like a lot of crowd pleasers. And then someone plays this cover of Zombie, and I was so stunned at how bad it was that I stopped because I was like, surely this will get better. Like, surely they're doing an interpretation and the music is going to loop back around and it's going to be kind of a callback to some musical thing that they were doing that I don't recognize. And it's all going to kind of mesh together. And no, it got worse, actually. It was rushed, which is like, why would you rush Zombie? What are you doing? So it was like rushed and it was off key. And the thing is, I was walking around earlier and they sounded fine doing another song, but man, and I said out loud, and I don't think anyone heard me, thank God, but I don't know that they would have disagreed. But I said out loud, that's the worst cover I've ever heard in my life. So anyway, one of the best covers I've ever heard in my life is by Alex Melton. He does this cover of Linger. We're going to put that in there. This isn't a real question. You just wanted to get these puns in, and I respect that. Congrats.
It's funny. I've heard covers of Zombie before and been like, okay, fine, whatever. There was somebody who did it. I think I was in Vegas, and there was a busker, and he did a reggae cover of Zombie that put it on my list of I never need to hear a cover of the song again.
Oh no!
It was a reggae cover of Zombie. With like a loop pedal to do the percussion. It was one of the more unfortunate things I have experienced. It's right up there for me with like Brown Eyed Girl and Imagine and Hallelujah. I never need to hear covers of these songs again. I'm good. We're done. Reggae killed the zombie, and
and like, you know, we've talked before about covers we absolutely adore, so it's not like an anti-covers thing, but like sometimes one singer nails it and you just kind of have to live with that.
Yeah. Let's talk some sumo and get off the rails. Deez asks, for Arif's Sumo Corner, can you break down move for move the final Ansanto versus Hoshuru championship match in great detail?
James, I'm like really proud of you for just powering through those pronunciations with no regard.
That is what the listeners pay for. For those that pay, we salute you.
Yeah. So like when it comes to these, I put in a little bit of work and then I'm right like 65% of the time, maybe generously. And James is like 65% is not good enough. And if that's what work gets me, I'm not doing it, which I also respect.
Now look, later in the mailbag, I did put a pronunciation guide up.
You did. But here you did not care. Yeah, I mean, okay, so sumo tends to be pretty short. So like move for move, kind of tough because you can't always tell what all the moves are. But in this case, it wasn't like there wasn't a ton that I could pick up from my limited experience doing technical breakdowns of sumo. I do more experiential coverage than I do technical breakdowns, as the listeners know. But I mean, it didn't seem that much more complicated than Hoshoryu kind of using the fact that he is physically one of the most dominant wrestlers, Rishiki, in the sport, and he has this kind of like this Reggie White kind of hump move. I think they call it an overarm, but he just tries to push you. He gets you a little bit off balance with a little bit of the, and this is kind of really related to one of our next questions, which is about judo because it's grappling arts, right? So he gets you in and out of your stance and unbalances you, and then he just moves the arm up, and it's just this powerful move. And Onosato, who lost to him in the previous match, so because Hoshoryu won 2 matches prior to that, I think like the math of the tournament was such that no matter what happened, Onosato would either win or get to play in the final or get to wrestle in the final. And so he lost to Hoshoryu, and so he gets to wrestle in the final against him. So he just lost against him like minutes prior to this, and he's like obviously very aware of this signature move, and so he's in that spot. He gets off balance, and then he also, it turns out, these 2 Yokozuna, it turns out both of them are strong, which I know is crazy to imagine, but he is very strong, and he rebalances himself and understands that now we're at a point where both of us are going to fall. So there's really only one way to do it. Make sure that you hit the ground first. And so he twists a little bit and gets back under Hoshoryu, and because they're moving at the edge of the ring, which for people who are unfamiliar, the ring is a little bit raised, so you can kind of use it to help trip other Rishiki. So he does that, and they fall at nearly the exact same time. I thought it was an incredible understanding of leverage and balance. And I'm sorry this wasn't a very technical breakdown, but I thought that plan of attack and recovery ability was really rare to see against that level of strength and speed. So awesome move, really intelligent play from Onosato, who has now won like 4 tournaments. Like he's on a run.
Do you have the Packers Cowboys game up right now?
No, I don't think my hotel gets it. What's going on?
The Packers just had an extra point blocked, and Dallas returned it for a touchdown. Well it returned it for 2 points. Yeah.
Yeah.
let me correct this.
Yeah. Okay,
so in the Hell League, some points really just swung.
That's true. Oh my God, I didn't think about that.
This may have won or lost somebody a Hell League matchup. Let's go to Damian Barrett, who asks, for Arif's cultural insensitivity corner. On a recent podcast, Arif noted the Famine Museum was a good place to visit in Dublin before launching straight into what food he likes to eat. With one of his examples,
wait, what's wrong with that? How else do you solve a famine? You got to eat.
With one of his examples being staunchly British, is this the reason the Vikings lost in Dublin, or is it because he was too busy to sign his personalized football card?
Wait, what personal? What?
Do you remember?
I didn't sign anything. That's James just made them. No, not James.
I didn't. Damien. Yes.
Damien just made them. I have not met Damien.
You did meet Damien before.
This week.
Okay.
Since the production of the card. And so I had no opportunity to sign them. We did try to organize something, but then I had to do something at like the stadium really early. So that didn't happen. So I'm sorry, Damien. Maybe you'll be in London. I don't know. Hopefully. No, I didn't sign. Okay. As for why the Vikings lost, I don't think it's because of my cultural insensitivity, which I think, here's the thing. The reason I don't feel bad about the thing you just described is because the Famine exhibition is in a mall. And to get to it, you have to walk through the food court. There is no other way to get to the Famine exhibition. Like, they did it. They did that in Ireland. Okay? So I don't feel bad talking about the Famine exhibition and then being like, hey, here's some really good food to eat. Like, it's fine. That's life. It happens. I'm sad that the famine occurred. It should not have occurred. I understand that is a controversial take. That is the official stance of the podcast.
Please do not print otherwise in the newspaper.
But like, also, I am mildly hungry. Not comparably hungry. Mildly hungry. And so I will talk about food.
Always. So I did just get a message from Jesse from Brooklyn, who has the kicker for the Packers on his Hell League team.
Oh,
and it was just a string of curses.
Dude, Jesse's great.
That's
I'm glad that happened to somebody I like. That's so good.
The Arif Hassan story. Let's go to Beef Brewski, who asks, I've recently started judo. I've been struggling against a taller and heavier opponent in Randori. Given Arif's prodigious knowledge of judo, should I focus on ashi or tewaza, or what do you think would yield more success?
Okay, so I assume at some point I told the story about me taking a judo college course and then dipping. Is that why?
I just think that because you're such a font of knowledge for all things, that this is just coming up as a, hey, I bet you know something about this.
Okay, because I couldn't tell if I had talked about the fact that I'd taken judo. I actually took it before that too, but mostly I told the story about how I'll just do that now. Who cares? So I did take judo for a couple of years. So I did taekwondo and then I did judo. And I really like judo. I think it's a really intelligently designed martial art. I think it's really cool. The way, most good martial arts will ensure that you've got really good body awareness. But I think I've talked about judo on the show before because we talked about taking judo to reduce concussion incidents, right? So probably I've talked about my history with that. But I don't know. It's really cool, and it was one of the kind of final stages of a more scientific approach to martial arts. Judo played and jiu-jitsu is an enormous role in modern martial arts. So it's awesome. It does teach you a lot of genuinely cool real life skills. But the story is, so I am taking judo in college because I'm not doing well in classes. And I was like, I just need an easy class. I've already taken judo for a couple of years. And so I don't obviously I'm going to have to show up but it's fine. I don't really have to worry too much. And so I show up and I go to the first couple of classes. And then I realized that if I do want to win debate tournaments and go to a ton of debate tournaments, I am going to have to miss a lot of classes because that's just when it's scheduled for me. And I realized that at the moment I have some of the best interactions I've ever had in that class, which are, this girl is for some reason interested in me and we're flirting the whole time and we partner up for grappling, which rules. There's no, obviously that's awesome. And then I never show up to class again. I'm wait, why? I did that for debate? That's so stupid. So that's judo for me. Anyway, to answer your question, to give listeners context, Randori is essentially, if I remember correctly, I didn't look this part up, is essentially what judoka would call sparring. It's the back and forth while you're gripping their gi. You're doing the back and forth and you're stepping back and forth, and that's how you practice your throws and your falls. Anyway, so should you focus on ashiwaza or tewaza? So tewaza are essentially arm throws or hand throws, and ashiwaza are leg throws. And you would think intuitively that, you're up against a taller opponent, you should focus on leg throws because you're closer to the ground and they've got further to fall and stuff like that. But I think historically, actually, taller judoka are a little bit better at leg throws. And so I would focus on ways to enable hip throws, which I think tewaza covers, if I remember correctly. That I think really gets you a lot further. I mean, you still have to sweep with the feet, so maybe that is ashiwaza. But I think heel hooks and stuff like that might not work as well for you. But I think that a lot of times shorter judoka do have an advantage once you have this understanding of everyone's momentum, because you've got a lower center of gravity and it is just harder to throw you if you're not using pure strength to do it. And that's kind of the lesson of judo, is that you're moving from using pure strength to do things from using leverage and momentum to do things. And as you get closer to that, the more that lower center of gravity is going to help you a lot. So I would focus a little bit, I guess, on tewaza, but really just focus on what your instructor is doing. But I think primarily what's going to work are these hip throws that really take advantage of kind of the fact that this guy that these taller judoka are going to be toppling towers. Again, as a 7-foot tall person, I'm just relaying my experience of what I've lost to, and not what has worked for me. But yeah, I don't know. You'll figure it out. It's fine. Just keep going to practice.
Dusty has emerged from my basement to ask a question. I've been hearing ads for Celsius energy drinks
Who is alive? Yeah.
On less successful podcasts. In the ad, a busy go-getter relies on 2 Celsius, one in the morning and another in the afternoon, to achieve their numerous goals throughout the day. How much would Arif's effectiveness decline if he were limited to 2 Celsius a day? And if he were, how would he distribute them for maximum achievement? How exactly would you ration the Celsius?
Okay, the first thing is I think a normal person taking 2 Celsius a day, that's not good. That's a crazy ad. Again, 200 milligrams of caffeine. Like, don't do that. Like, 1 cup of coffee is like 90, 95 typically. And so you're doing 4 cups of coffee throughout the day. I think most people are not in a great spot for that. That said, Dusty is correct that my Celsius consumption, I don't know, I'm down to 3. That's not like terrible for me, because I was up to essentially 4 or 5 equivalent, and that's bad. And that if you don't have a high tolerance chemically, I mean, there's a high chance you'll develop toxicity, which did happen. I've told that story maybe 2-3 times on this podcast before, when I was in 8th grade, 7th grade, but so this is a direct problem right now. So I planned on going to Dublin and London in like one go, right? Which is kind of the only way you can do it if you're going to do both. And so I figured I was probably going to buy, a couple of gifts for people, like I mentioned. And I wanted to make sure that I definitely like had room in my luggage to bring gifts back. And so I was like, well, the easiest way to do that is to like have consumables go with me. And I know it's actually kind of difficult to get high caffeine drinks in other countries that aren't the United States, because they like care about health and stuff for some reason. And so it's just a little bit more. They don't like sell it at as many places. And so I packed like 7 Celsius to go with me, and I'm out. I've had like 1 a day. I knew that I had to ration my Celsius, and it turns out like rationing the Celsius was tough. I could not last more than a week. So when I go to London, I'm gonna just have to find as much as I can. I really needed a 5-hour energy today, and I didn't get one. It's rough. This is basically the slums. And I don't know. My effectiveness has declined. I published that article real late, right? So, yeah. So if I were to distribute 2 Celsius a day for maximum achievement, I would not do the morning. No, I'm never productive in the morning with caffeine. So why would I essentially throw that away? No, that's definitely an afternoon and evening consumption if I'm only having 2.
Now, when you say that other countries care about their health, or in this case, Ireland, does that imply that their med beds are better than ours?
God. All right. So people who are unfamiliar with this QAnon conspiracy that suddenly gained relevance today, I think.
Yes.
So there has been a fairly long-ish running conspiracy where, so like a lot of people now understand that a lot of the introductory pipeline into the QAnon stuff has come through wellness influencers, people like Aaron Rodgers and the people that he tends to date that are on AI. They have a well-founded suspicion of the pharmaceutical industry, but they don't really understand how the whole system works together, or what medicine is, I guess is the best way to put it. And so in the resistance to traditional medicines, which every time a medicine becomes, I shouldn't say traditional, orthodox, becomes orthodox, it like loses its relevance, despite the fact that like if you describe them in other terms, they would love them. Like aspirin is like willow bark or whatever, right? Like you love that stuff. Come on. One of the things that they do is that they will run electricity through various objects and then just tell you that fixes stuff. Brett Favre advertised these magnets in compression sleeves that were supposed to fix stuff, which like Brett Favre is he's a bad person, but also like as an athlete is kind of like crazily built as like a unique human because he could take an insane amount of abuse until exactly he was 42. and then nothing, right? But that's unreal, the amount of abuse that he took. And so you would like, instead of anyone thinking, oh, there like might be something kind of like in his environment or his genetics that like created this, they're like, oh, no, it's because he wears like copper or whatever. So I guess not even magnetic necessarily. And that kind of track has increased in importance. And so there's this idea that we've actually solved most like or all illnesses, and the way to do that is that you get inside sometimes it's aliens, sometimes it's just the government, capital G government, and sometimes I guess it's big pharma. I don't know. The conspiracies aren't consistent, but like you just go into a chamber, often a bed, and then they do something, life force, and then you're cured of like cancers and asthma and like measles. And I think you're beginning to understand why this thing is dangerous, because it doesn't do that, but like people think it does, and so they don't go to like the doctor. And then Trump said we should do that, I think, right? Is that what happened? Like today?
He had reposted a fake AI video on Truth Social promoting this, and it was like a fake Fox News article or like fake Fox News presentation of it. Yes. So
okay, I didn't like click on the video, so I was just like, oh, that sucks. So he reposted something he knew he didn't say?
Yes.
What the? All right, dude. Okay, this is not wide left, but like, what the hell?
In the interest of full disclosure, I got so upset. We're fully off the rails at this point.
Oh, for sure.
I got so incensed at the attempt to say the word acetaminophen that I literally pulled up my computer and I reapplied to my passport had expired. That attempt at saying acetaminophen made me spend a bunch of money to get a new one. Like I've never been inspired like that politically before. You're like, nope. Well, I need to go to Canada for a couple of days, which might be a good idea for Kyle Segal here for his question.
That might be the only idea for him at this point.
Kyle Segal asks, "G'day, lads. Just wondering if one to have been reassigned from Cook due to repeated gastrointestinal issues, R.I.P. Steve, and is now an envoy to a nearby rural town that may or may not be hostile. How do I do this without being shot? Also, hurry, as I'm hypothetically in the town."
Okay, envoy is a crazy dangerous job to have been assigned, which I believe is probably why you've been assigned it, hypothetically, in this world that you're kind of... We're on, like... He's just constructing an alternate reality that we're all a part of now, I guess. Do you remember the Rahm Emanuel tweets stuff, James?
Yes.
This is that. Yeah, this is just that. I'm not going to explain that one to listeners. If you know, you know. Kyle... So I would suggest having multiple white flags and like a backup white flag in your pocket, and then also you're just always carrying one. And it sounds like you have to like deliver messages, right? That's the deal. You might need to construct an elaborate scenario where you are constantly lying to the two parties that you are liaising between, so that they don't get mad at each other. And I think that this cartoon scenario where you have to construct, increasingly elaborate lies to make everything kind of work out is your only option until you figure out how to flee. I think that that's probably it, right? Like they say F you, and then you go to them and you say, hey, they say that there are a couple of challenges with the trade proposal, and then they excuse you go back to the original people. And you say, hey, they have taken your words into consideration and they asked me what the problem was, so I explained. And so this is kind of what they're thinking. And so you just have to like reinterpret everything because you can't make them mad or that's it for you, especially because the original guys probably liked Steve. Again, this is all hypothetical. But like as you're traveling between these two locales, you got to like be scouting escape routes because like that's the real goal here.
The episode title should have been hypothetically liking Steve. Let's end this with Leon, who asks, I have heard you say multiple times that people should not try to win relationships. Yes. Coming from someone who as competitive as yourself, this has confused me, but I think I understand how. Similar to a lineman purposefully losing a block before slipping out for a screenplay, how do I best lose aspects of a relationship in order to convince my partner that they are winning, but I still maintain control?
Okay, so like when I say the purpose of a relationship isn't to win, what I'm saying is that you should not construct your relationship dynamic in such a way that there are winners. Like that's what I mean, is that there should not be a winner-loser situation. So I don't mean that you should trick the other person into thinking they're winning, because again, winning is a concept that we should not be really employing here. You're not competing with your partner. That's not the goal. I mean, maybe like sometimes you have like fun little games, right? But like the relationship itself is not the competition. It's really important for me that you all understand that. That said, in the framework that you described, this one's pretty simple, I think. I think James knows this one too, which is just whenever you get into an argument, kind of really understand what they were getting at and really try to understand like why it is they didn't get what you were getting at. And then a couple of days later, tell them like, hey, I really thought about what you said, and then re-describe what they said in slightly altered terms to make it sound like it was close to what you said, but you never acknowledge that you say it. So you always make them think that your ideas are actually their ideas. And so you're getting the stuff you want done, and they feel like, you know, they're winning the argument, which again, don't do this. Just be honest in your communication. But like, within the framework that you've set up where like there's like standings and wins and like Sun Tzu Art of War stuff now, you know, make them think that your ideas are the ones that they come up with in ways that are plausible.
I was once in a relationship where I did something similar, but what I ended up doing, well, this was not a healthy relationship.
What?
This relationship could have died 2 years before it did. But I was in a situation where I did something similar, but instead of that, it was trying to fast forward through their stories.
Wait, how long were their stories? Like, you couldn't spare 2 minutes?
They were long. I tried to fast forward because I'd be like paying. Like I'd be like I'd be like right on it, and I go, okay, so then so then you did this, right? And she'd go, yeah, I did, and that caused this, and I went, yeah, that makes sense. So why did you do this? That is like, and she caught me once, and she like, why are you trying to fast forward through my story? And I didn't have a good answer.
How did she catch you?
Oh,
did you do it in front of her?
Yes.
What? That's obviously a bad idea. What in the world?
Like I'd lost my patience in so many aspects. It was time for this to no longer be a thing. And yeah, I tried to do that, and it didn't work. It worked for a small period of time, but it was not something I would suggest. But yeah, I get it because I've done something like that before. That relationship ended. That relationship went down in flames. But it could work for you. And with that, that'll be the end of this episode of Norse Code. We hope you have enjoyed it. We'll be back later this week with a preview of the Browns game. Arif, what do you have to plug?
Yeah, I just published like an unhinged piece on Croke Park and the Vikings game. I do talk about the game in the piece. Like I get there, but it's a journey. So you're just going to have to hold someone's hand as you walk through the piece, but definitely check that out. I put a lot of work into it. I went to like 19 museums and talked to like 4 historians. And as soon as I published, I got like a DM like, hey, you spelled this wrong. So it's perfect. I love it. Check that out. It's about the history of Croke Park and what's happened there and why it's really significant to Irish history and what kind of lays underneath the surface of all of kind of the traditions that we enjoy there and how it kind of relates to the Vikings and the Steelers and historical legacy that the mascots refer to, the Vikings and the Steelers. Also, like Carson Wentz didn't play that well. I talk about that too. So check that out. There's also other pieces that Wide Left. I'm confident that there are. I'm confident we've published more than one thing. But I've got a couple of pieces coming down the pike. And of course, Matt Freeze has been putting in outstanding work to help us better understand the game, and that'll be coming soon too.
Well, that'll be it for this episode of Norse Code. We hope you have enjoyed it. We'll be back later this week with a preview of the Browns game. So, for Arif, my name is James. Thank you guys so much for listening, and please remember that the horrors persist, and so does Carson Wentz. Still. And we will be back soon. Norse Code is the largest and only division of Norse Code LLC. You can find Norse Code on the Daily Norseman, SB Nation's Vikings blog at dailynorseman.com. You can also find it on iTunes, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Spotify, Google Play, and wherever fine podcasts are aggregated. Our Vikings blogger extraordinaire and generally useful human is Arif Hassan of... and he can be found on Twitter at Arif Hassan NFL. I am your producer and host, and my name is James Pagashnik. You can find me at the show's official Twitter feed at NorseCodeDN or at my personal account at Big Mono. If you'd like to donate a few bucks to the show, you can do so in a couple of different ways. You can go to patreon.com/NorseCode and donate there. For $3.50 a month, you get bonus material and more. You can also go to paypal.me/NorseCode for a one-time donation, or you can go to norsecode.threadless.com and pick up some Norse Code merch. Any questions or comments that cannot fit in a tweet can be sent to norsecodepodcast@gmail.com. On behalf of the Norse Code staff, we thank you so much for listening.
Our formula is this.
All things are possible through the power of Ben DiNucci.